The last 10 or so years has clearly seen an explosion of innovation and technology in our industry at all levels of the industry. I mean, just take banking, for example. I mean, banking is no longer a brick and mortar business. The banks and institutions invest heavily in technology that let people now, do their banking 24/7 mobilely. I mean, no one goes in to make a deposit with a teller anymore. But I remember when I was a kid, it was cool when they had the drive-thru windows, the tubes that you can put your check in and send it in and do it from your car. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, and that's all history. And we have companies like Square developing technology for mobile credit card transaction payments, companies like Bump that where people are able to transfer money from one bank account to another just by clicking their iPhones together. And in the electronic exchange world, it wasn't that long ago that we had over a 100-year stretch where the paradigm was pit trading, right? And there was some technology involved, but for the most part, it was humans, doing the matching. And now, over the last 10 years or so, we've seen an explosive move towards, electronic trading. Exchanges now are technology companies developing very sophisticated matching engines, and along with it, implementing and developing very sophisticated high-speed communication that delivers mass amounts of real-time data to mass amounts of people, really cutting-edge stuff. This move towards innovation goes all the way to the level of the individual traders. Again, for over 100 years, trading went on in the auction pit format. And how did traders get advantage? I'm simplifying it, but a lot of it had to do with their size, their relationships with people, how aggressive they were. And there were some levels of innovation that patents have nothing to do with. A guy at our office brought out his old elevator shoes there was a race to be taller where people wore elevator shoes to get an advantage. Now we're talking about traders working with and developing GUIs, automated tools, black boxes, having to deal with the most cutting-edge, sophisticated communication issues out there. And you look at the profile of employees at, whether it be a prop shop, hedge funds, banks, we're talking now about computer scientist degrees, computer engineers, mathematicians, a new degree that didn't exist when I was in college, financial engineering, from business schools. So what is patents? Where do patents come into play? Now, patents are not a perfect indicator, but I think they're a pretty good objective, rough indicator of the level of innovation in an industry. If someone has an invention, a technical invention that's new and not obvious from what was done before, they can protect that with a patent. And so people, when they're innovating, different industries tend to file patents to try to protect that. So in the financial industry, the patent office is broken up into art units and classes. They have all sorts of classes, but most of the patents that relate to the financial business are in what's called Class 705 in the patent office. And if you take a look at this chart, financial patents have been around forever. It's not like they're new, but in the mid-2000 timeframe, you see an exponential increase in it, in the filings of those patents, or in the issuances of such patents. And where are those patents coming from? Well, they're coming from players in our industry, like my company, banks, JP Morgan, some of them are on the list here, American Express, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. And they're also coming from people outside our industry, technology companies like IBM, Google, Microsoft, Sony. So they're coming from everywhere. And another thing that we've seen in the last 10 or so years is banks. Traditionally banks there was a few, but didn't spend much on R&D or technology. They viewed themselves, I think, more as a customer of technology. But now you see, in the last 10 years, here's an example of 8 of the largest banks who are filing quite a few patents. And so in reality, it's kind of a misnomer when people say a bank or a technology company. To a large standpoint, banks are now becoming technology companies. Everyone in our industry is becoming a technology company. And I think the filing rates of patents are reflecting that. So what's the impact of all this? And there's probably lots of impacts. And I'm going to go through what I view as 3 of them. One is there's clearly been a significant increase in litigation and licensing in our industry. There's been lawsuits between competitors in our industry. One competitor suing another, trying to either stop them from using some technology or asking them to pay for the use of that technology. Players outside of our industry who have patents in the industry have been asserting them against players in the industry, usually seeking some type of, the primary goal is money, seeking damages or an ongoing royalty. And that's just becoming a reality. And as a result of this, we are seeing definitely all sorts of license deals occur, and with people transferring their rights from one company to another, licensing their rights. And another impact, it doesn't really relate to the direct operations of companies in our industry, but it relates to players in our industry like traders, money managers, hedge fund managers. Patents are becoming a significant portion of the value of companies. And so the people who are making investments in companies are needing to factor that in. And some of the examples we've already talked about, Google buys Motorola Mobility for over $12 billion. Much of that was attributed to the patent portfolio. AOL sold a portion of their patent portfolio to Microsoft for over $1 billion. In our industry, we have the example of American Express. They happen to be a company that was ahead of the curve in filing for patents compared to other players in the industry. So they built up a pretty big patent portfolio, and they did a transaction. I don't know all the details with it, but they did it with a company called Intellectual Ventures, known as IV. And as part of that transaction, some patents of Amex got transferred in some way to IV. IV is a company that specializes in licensing and exploiting patents. They don't have that's their business. They don't practice these patents, and they sue a lot of companies. And recently, they've sued several banks for infringing what were formerly Amex patents. And then another impact is everyone's realizing the important value of patents. They're an asset, but they present the challenges we talked about. They're not standard. They're very difficult to value. Litigation is incredibly costly and unpredictable, but despite those challenges, companies like IPXI and others are trying to come up with ways to make the market work, to create a market or make the market for patents and licensing work more efficiently. There's a company called RPX that acts like as a broker trying to en masse settle patent disputes for their member companies. There's a company here in town, Ocean Tomo, that's held for the last few years annual auctions where they're putting patents up for auction. So there's a lot of effort by financial engineers and smart people trying to basically innovate in this area to try to make a marketplace. And I think as this goes forward, I would imagine if anyone, maybe IPXI has the answer, if they figure out a solution to this, they're probably going to file patents on it, and they're going to make a lot of money. But that's definitely an impact of what's been going on. So I have some just predictions. They're probably pretty obvious, but I think we're going to see the explosion of innovation and technology in our industry is just going to continue. And along with that, we're going to see lots and lots of more patents issue in our industry. And because of that, we're going to see more and more litigation. And what you're going to see is you're going to see some, and there's not going to be a lot of this, I don't think, but you're going to see some very high stakes bet the company litigation between competitors. That's incredibly hard fought and controversial. You'll see that every so often. But what you're going to see even more of, which a lot of other industries are seeing, is suits from patent holders who are just seeking to monetize those patents. Their goal is not necessarily worrying about competitive concerns. They want to make money off their patents. And you'll see that many of those disputes get resolved in what I would call nuisance settlements, which in a patent case is a high number because it's less than the cost of the litigation, but patent litigation is multi-million-dollar proposition. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, and it's going to become a reality for a lot of companies. And so another thing you're going to see is many more licensing deals, companies transferring rights from one to another, maybe competitors seeking peace through cross-license deals or licensing patents to resolve a potential legal dispute. And I also think we're going to see more of these high-priced acquisitions that in our industry, we've seen a lot of it outside our industry, where some companies in our industry are going to acquire a patent portfolio for some reason to build up their defenses maybe. Or companies like IV, who are actively doing this, trying to build up and acquire a portfolio for the purpose of targeting players in our industry to generate money and transfer, in their minds, transfer technology to those companies. And finally, it's just with the explosion of innovation, how we're becoming an IP world, it seems pretty clear that patents are going to more and more become an important asset of companies, maybe the most important asset for many companies. So it's going to be very important for investors and the players in our industry to be savvy, be able to evaluate patents, be able to value them, and be savvy about how to assess those things. So the bottom line is, for better or for worse, and I know there's a lot of debate on this, I mean, patents are here to stay in a reality in our industry. And one other thing I think we're going to see, by the way, with the increased licensing is, like other companies that are more mature with patents, you see the business side factoring in the potential cost of having to license IP into their financial and business plans. And I think now we're going to see that happening with companies in our industry. So the bottom line is, though, patents are reality in our industry, and for those of you who are going to pursue careers in the industry, I think it's fair to say that many of you will probably have direct interaction with some way with patent issues, and probably most of you at least some indirect interaction as you go forward with your careers. Thank you.